Vernon Pete Hidy created a pattern called a Flymph that he used on his local rivers and streams. A Flymph is a blend of a wet fly and a nymph, and it's an excellent stillwater pattern, especially if you've got Callibaetis mayflies in your waters. Let's tie a Callibaetis Flymph. So I placed into the vise a Daiichi 1170 number 14. You can tie these 12s, 14s, and 16s. This is a dry fly hook because we're going to fish this fly right in the surface film to imitate a Callibaetis nymph that's just come up to the surface and is about to transform into the dun. So we're going to use some gray 8/0. Just going to build a thread base. Get that started, pull down, and snap forward to break off. So we're just going to cover the hook with a good base of thread, about halfway between the point and the crushed down barb, and then bring tying thread forwards to about, I'm just going to unwind it, about the halfway point. For the tail, we're going to use, and the hackle, we're going to use a whiting. This is a Hebert Minor wet fly hackle. I love on the back that it says the Stillwater Delight. So I've just taken a feather from the top of the cape and I've isolated a clump, pulled them perpendicular to the stem to even up the tips. Strip those carefully from the stem, and we're going to tie in a tail, sparse tail, that's about the shank length long. Just going to reel in my bobbin here so I have a little more control of it. Get a couple of wraps to tie this in and have a look at those fibers and make sure that I like the length of that tail. If anything, this is a little short this time, so I can just grab it, carefully pull on it. That'll lengthen them out a little bit. That looks okay. And then just secure them on top of the shank using my left thumb and forefinger to hold everything in place. And just wind those down like so. Form a neat little tail. And then come up. And we're going to secure these all the way up to build a nice even foundation. And then right when we get near the hook eye, we'll come in and trim off those remnants. A few sticking up, no big deal. Go back down. And we want to make sure we have a nice smooth body, because on this version, I'm going to use a turkey biot for the body. So whenever you have a biot body, you always want to make sure that you have a nice smooth foundation. So this is a turkey biot feather right here. And we're just going to take one right at the base here and take one strand, remove it from, so we're going to take this one off here, isolate it, and remove it from the stem. Now, it's always a good idea to moisten them. You can, moisten your fingers and run it through the feather or a wet paper towel. But these feathers, these fibers, you can have a different look. So if you want to have a ridge on this to imitate segments, you'd want to actually tie the feather down with this little notch where you stripped it off, this little, you see the little notch right here, pointing down. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm just going to trim the very tip of it even, because they're quite brittle there, and I'm just going to tie that in right at the base of the tail. Secure that up about 3/4 of the way up the shank. Just going to go forward and just cover those down. It's being kind of fussy. All the way like so. And then a big help whenever you're winding biot bodies is to have a pair of hackle pliers. And I'm just going to put a half a turn in. Grab these, and if I've done this right, place one wrap, and you'll see these little ridges, those little furry fibers on the edge, and they're starting, so they're sticking up like this, and that helps suggest the segmentation. In the case of a Callibaetis nymph, even the little abdominal gills that are whirring away right up until they transition. So we're just going to bring that forward. Flat wraps, one wrap adjacent to the other, over the top away from me, right up to that tying thread. And this is again why the Hackle pliers are such a benefit, because it's just too short a fiber to hold on to throughout the process with your thumb and forefinger. So we'll just tie those off, trim away the excess, wind that down, bring that tying thread back up. So now I'm going to tie in the hackle, and I'm just using again a hen feather again from the same cape, just further down, and again size to the hook, so about a size 14. You could go a little larger, it's not the end of the world. And I'm going to tie that in place, just tie it in by the exposed stem. Get that tied in at the eye of the hook, and then I'm going to come in, and then I'm going to form the thorax by just twisting a little bit of gray squirrel onto the thread. You could use natural rabbit fur if you wanted to. You could use synthetic dubbing. Doesn't really matter. So I'm just twisting this onto the thread, and I'll slide it up into view here. And then we're just going to take our dubbing and form a thorax. Basically from the back of the hackle, just like so. Nice scruffy little thorax. Remember, imitating a Callibaetis, not the most robust of insects. And then we're just going to take our hackle and just put a couple of wraps right at the front, maybe one complete wrap right at the front, and then just palmer this back over the thorax and open spacing back to where that thread is hanging. And now I'm going to spin this thread clockwise to tighten the wraps. I'm going to come up and tie off the hackle, and then just walk that thread right through the thorax up to the hook eye. And at this point we'll pull down a little bit. We're going to apply some head cement, in this case brushable super glue, to those thread wraps. I'm going to pull back everything and just build up a little head with that coated, super glue coated thread. And then we can come in and build a 3 to 5 turn whip finish. Let up to tighten. Tie that off, come in, trim away, and that is your completed Callibaetis Flymph. So this is a fly that you would fish right in the surface film when the fish are up feeding on emerging, transitioning nymphs and emerging duns. This is going to float right in the film. You're just going to fish this with a floating line, anywhere from a 12 to 14 foot leader, and just slow hand twists, and that line is just going to lock up on calm conditions. You may actually see the fish take the fly, but the hackle is designed to sort of suspend the fly right in the film, so you can take advantage of those fish feeding on the transitioning nymphs. So there you have it, the completed Callibaetis Flymph.